So this is it. I have my copy of Player Core 2, the last of the remastered books for Pathfinder 2nd edition, and I'm going to start looking through it. Today's video will cover the Alchemist, which is the one class that is seeing a lot of changes that Paizo has not previewed yet, so I wanted to get to it. I know there's a lot of curiosity among players as to what they've done to the class. And from what I've seen, they have significantly buffed it. The Alchemist has kind of been the red-headed stepchild of the Pathfinder system. The Alchemist's strength was their versatility and their ability to exploit damage weaknesses of enemies. Their bombs didn't have to even succeed at hitting an enemy to do splash damage to some area and trigger the numerical weaknesses bonus damage of enemies. However, there was a high skill floor for the class. It wasn't straightforward how to play them optimally in a way that made you feel like you were contributing equally to other members of the party. And there's some needing to know the array of alchemical items, and there's not a small number of them that exist in the system. In fact, I made a couple of videos, an incomplete series on how to play the Alchemist earlier in my channel a couple of years ago. It looks like Paizo has kept the potential complexity for people who enjoy that, but also have made it more accessible to people who want to play it in a more straightforward manner. And there are overall buffs across the board for both types of players. Now, a caveat for this video, I'm bound to get a few things wrong. I prepared this relatively quickly. I was just excited and wanted to get this out right away, and also to beat the news. Now, to introduce myself, I am Ronald, the Rules Lawyer. I am a game master for tabletop role-playing games. My preferred system is Pathfinder 2e. I taught an after-school, middle-school RPG class for several years. Support my Patreon if you haven't already. I do not make money as an attorney. For more info on that, look at the video whose thumbnail is on the screen. Supporting my Patreon gives you early access to most of my videos and exclusive content. I'm going to go through the class features first, and this is kind of a sprawling video. There's a lot to cover, so there will be timestamps on the screen that I will show, and also at the timeline of the video. First, Alchemists now have medium armor proficiency. They did not have this before. They were limited to light armor, and this improves with their defenses as they level up, of course. This makes it more viable to be a strength-focused Mutagenist class if you want to get in the front lines, so that you don't have to worry about putting a high score into dexterity. You still need dexterity to throw your bombs, however. Here's a few small things. At level 1, you can now automatically identify any alchemical item that is in your formula book. Also, once you know the formula for something, you automatically know the higher level versions of it. For example, minor elixir of life, you don't need to get a new formula to be able to craft true elixir of life when you get to the corresponding level for it. So this makes it easier for you to diversify your formula book as you get those free formulas when you level up. And now an answer to many Alchemist players' prayers. They have allowed Alchemists to get mastery in strikes with their alchemical bombs and unarmed attacks and simple weapons. Before, they were capped at expert, which was where spellcasters were at, and that was a bit sad because many Alchemist players want to throw bombs. You were sometimes better off handing over a bomb to an ally who is more accurate than you were. This comes at level 15. You still become expert at level 7. This also means being a frontline Mutagenist or a poisoner alchemist is more viable in the higher levels. But the big change is this next one. They have changed how you prepare alchemical items. Before, you had a single pool, a single resource of infused reagents that you could use either to prepare batches, multiple copies of a single thing in the morning, and you had to set some aside in order to use quick alchemy, your spontaneous way of producing alchemical items on the fly. Now, preparing your alchemical items in the morning and having the ability to do things on the fly come from two different pools. So here's how it works. Advanced alchemy works as before. In the morning, you prepare a number of alchemical items that you can use that day. Before, the number of infused reagents you had scaled with your level. You added your intelligence bonus to your level. And with each of those reagents, you could prepare a batch that would produce 2, or in some cases 3 copies of that item. So you could have 10 to 15 prepared items in the morning. However, that meant using up all of your infused reagents. You couldn't use quick alchemy later. The new Alchemist now just gives you a flat number, no matter what your level is. You can prepare 4 plus your intelligence modifier number of alchemical items every morning. That only last for that day. This is already more generous at lower levels. These 8 items, if you're maxing out your intelligence, can be unique. They can all be different from each other. It does not scale up, however, anymore as you level up. But the main benefit is that they do not compete with your, now I would call it your main feature, which is versatile vials. You have a number of versatile vials. You can have up to 2 plus your intelligence modifier, so that's probably going to be 6 at first level. This is a huge buff and a quality of life improvement for alchemists. But more importantly, you can replenish them. For every 10 minutes you spend in exploration mode, you regain 2 of those vials. This does not prevent you from participating in other exploration activities. So you can be going around raising your shield constantly, guarding yourself from danger while gathering ingredients. And it doesn't matter what environment you're in. You can be in the ocean, you can be in outer space. You are gathering ingredients for your versatile vials. It's a bit fantastical, admittedly, but gameplay-wise, it's more streamlined and convenient, and you can reflavor the justification however you want. So people who know Pathfinder know that this sounds a lot like focus points, and if you're thinking that, you are right. Your alchemical items now become encounter powers. You draw from a pool of 6 for each encounter, and if enough time passes between encounters, that will refill up to its maximum. So how does quick alchemy work now? Has it changed? Well, it still takes 1 action with the manipulate trait, and you can still create consumable items that last until the start of your next turn. You can still hand an elixir, for example, to your ally, who can then drink it before your next turn starts. However, we now have a new option for quick alchemy called Quick Vial. And with this, you can create a new versatile vial. So if you have at least 1 versatile vial, you can keep making versatile vials forever. And this versatile vial can be used either as a relatively weak acid bomb, but it's not that weak, it's just slightly weaker than your other bombs, or do something else that your research field lets you do. And when we get to the research fields, the alchemist subclasses, I will explain those. Notably, however, quick vials only last until the end of your current turn. That's an important distinction. So this has a huge impact on the alchemist class. Before, you were comparable to being both a prepared spellcaster and a spontaneous spellcaster, except that your spells were alchemical items. You had a prepared set of things you made that morning, anticipating what you encountered that day, with some things set aside so that you can react to new developments. You can determine when you use it, which of your formulas that is. However, they were both depleting the same daily resource you had, and this increased the complexity of the alchemist class, which already was complex because you needed to know some of the, at least the more important alchemical items in the book. In addition to that, you had to worry about your dwindling daily resource. Before, to compensate for that, you had this class feature that let you always use quick alchemy to quickly brew much lower level alchemical items, a couple of signature items. But those were substantially weaker than what you wanted to do. But now you essentially have at-will abilities that you can use. You can throw those acid bombs till the cows come home and do your special research field action as well. So you can be more carefree with your alchemy. You can always do a decent acid bomb or something signature from your research field at will. And if you want to make items from your formula book on the fly, you are limited to 6 per encounter, so long as you have enough time between encounters. And 6 per encounter is pretty good. Even 4, even maybe 2, because with quick alchemy, it takes you an action to make the thing. So you can probably only use it once per round anyway, at least before you get double brew at level 9, which I'll get into later. And so most fights will probably be done before you deplete your versatile vials pool. So that number will last you through most fights, before you have to draw from your reserves, which are your prepared items for the day. It's comparable to temporary hit points. You lose your temporary hit points before your main hit points, or if you played Starfinder, it was like losing stamina. You lost that before you lost your meat points. So you can now be more carefree in how you use your main feature. If you see yourself as a healer, then go ahead and heal, heal, heal. If you love to bomb, then bomb, bomb, bomb. And you can keep doing this no matter how long the adventuring day is, so long as you have enough time between encounters. And this replenishable resource can be used for every single formula that you have in your formula book that you are high enough level for. So the class that was strong for its versatility has just gotten that versatility unchained. Meanwhile, your prepared pool of items, which at level 1 is 8 items, is a reserve that you use for particularly difficult fights. There are things that you never want to run out of. So one obvious candidate for those is some healing potions to bring up a downed ally or yourself. Another thing about this versatile vials feature is that you can use it outside of combat as well. You can have elixirs buffing you or your allies constantly throughout the day. Now, granted, that's why there's this new limitation that what consumable you create from this feature cannot last longer than 10 minutes. But we're talking about potent abilities like Drakeheart Mutagen. That is the mutagen that allows a character with low dexterity who cannot wear armor to essentially get an item bonus to AC. And there's many utility items in the alchemical items list, such as Sea Touch Elixir, which gives a swim speed to allies. My one complaint about this new class feature is that the language is a bit confusing. Your replenishable resource is called Versatile Vials, but one of the options of things you can make with it is called Versatile Vial. And this led to some confusion for me in a couple of places, and I'll point them out. Megan's here. Hi, Megan. All right, we have not even left level 1, and we'll now get to the higher level class features. I will only point out things that have changed. At level 5, you now get Powerful Alchemy. If you're infused alchemical items, so things that you don't make using the normal crafting downtime activity. So basically your prepared items in the morning from Advanced Alchemy or your Versatile Vials, if they allow a saving throw, then you can change its DC to your class DC. So this basically is important for poisons. When you get to higher level, those level 1 poisons that might have made something clumsy that had a particular rider effect that you particularly enjoy, their DCs are set at that low number that they had at the time, but you can now raise them up to your current class DC as you level up, so they stay relevant. That used to be the Toxicologist subclass's shtick. That used to be one of its main features. Now it's available to all alchemists. Now, what happened to the Toxicologist? We'll get to that later. Level 5 is Field Discovery. Before, it let you prepare more items from a single batch of infused reagents, but because morning preparations have been completely redesigned, that's no longer relevant. So the subclasses now give you something new this time around, and we'll get to those when we get to subclasses. Level 9 is Double Brew, which allows you to create 2 items when you use Quick Alchemy. That's the same as before. However, it says if you create 2 consumables, you have to expend a versatile vial for each one. Next is Advanced Vials at level 11. Remember you had that extra option on how to use your versatile vials. This powers that up depending on your subclass, and we'll see that when we get to the subclasses. Next is Abundant Vials at level 17. It makes you permanently quickened, and you must use that extra action to use Quick Alchemy to create a Quick Vial. That is the versatile vial that can only be used as an acid bomb or what your research field allows you. Again, I'm not happy with all of these words. Also, it cannot be used to double brew. However, this feature didn't exist before in the previous Alchemist. This is another straight buff for the Alchemist. All right, on to the subclasses and their changes. They've all been buffed. Well, except maybe one. We'll see. There are 4 of them. The first one is the Bomber. First, every subclass gives you 2 more formulas that are appropriate for that subclass, so giving you a total of 8 formulas at level 1, just as before. At level 1, you get the same benefit as before. You get to decide that your bomb does not splash to adjacent creatures. Now your Field Vials option, remember this is your other way to use that versatile vial, is to make it another bomb that does cold, electricity, or fire damage instead of acid damage. Okay, at 5th level, and remember, for all of these subclasses, the Field Discovery at 5th level is something new. It's a buff. Because before, what they had just is no longer relevant anymore. It's now replaced with this new thing. Now the splash damage from your bombs equals your intelligence modifier. Now, some of you may be wondering, hey, wasn't there an alchemist feat that did that called Calculated Splash? Well, that is not printed in this book. And so I believe the intention is to now make that feature exclusive to the bomber subclass. We have not been told by Paizo whether we should nix Calculated Splash from our games. I would appreciate them telling us, because its omission in this book and the fact that it would crowd this feature of the bomber kind of suggests that they don't want it in the game. That's how I'm inclined to have it in my games, and Paizo should clarify their intention. All right, advanced vials at level 11. Boosted up version of your option for your versatile vial. Now, I'm not sure I understand this. It says you can choose to have your versatile vial treated as one special material of your choice, chosen from adamantine, cold iron, and dawn silver. Dawn silver is the remaster name for mithril, which also can be treated as silver for triggering weaknesses. I'm confused here because I thought our versatile vial was dealing energy damage, so I suppose it can be treated as these things as well, to the detriment of the target, which makes sense. There are some monsters that have weakness to cold iron damage or dawn silver damage or silver damage. However, there's no such thing for adamantine, and so I'm a bit confused. Something else that's cool here is that if you are wearing or wielding an item made of a different precious material, you can make your vial treated as that material instead. But again, I'm not sure how this translates into actual play. You know what? I'm realizing maybe it can be used as a weapon? A bludgeoning item? But then they would have given us stats. Well, anyway, I want some clarification. Okay, 13th level, Greater Field Discovery is the same as before. Your splash can extend 10 feet or 15 feet if you have the expanded splash feat. All right, next is the Chirurgeon, the healing subclass. The level 1 benefit is the same as before. You get to use your crafting skill instead of your medicine skill for medicine purposes, which is really nice since your intelligence, the skill behind crafting, is probably your highest attribute. Your versatile vials can be used to heal living creatures. Now, remember, your quick vials expire at the end of your current's turn. And it's kind of funny thematically. If you use it against a foe, it can burn them to death, but if an ally drinks it, it heals them. You have two special uses for your versatile vial. First, someone can drink it, or you can throw it at a willing creature. They have to be willing for it to heal them. They have to be within 20 feet of you, and it heals them that amount. And it absorbs through their skin, I guess, as opposed to the acid damage it would have done to someone else. Basically, if you don't like it, it hurts, and if you do like it, it's nice. Kind of like something else. Now, mind you, it has the coagulance trait, a new trait that basically says that someone can benefit from it only once every 10 minutes. One important note is that it has the elixir trait only if a creature drinks it, and there's a number of abilities that key off of something being an elixir, such as this 5th level feature. When a creature drinks an infused elixir with the healing trait that you have made, then they get a number of temporary hit points equal to your intelligence modifier that lasts for a minute, so a nice buffer against further harm. At level 11, your versatile vials do not have the coagulance trait if the target is at half of their maximum hit points or lower. So by this level, you have double brews, so that you can create 2 vials and throw them at your ally, and they can benefit from both if they're low enough health. Your 13th level feature lets your elixir of life that comes from quick alchemy heal the maximum hit points possible. That's the same as before. But as with many things, since quick alchemy is much more accessible to you as an alchemist now, this feature is buffed. Next is the Mutagenist, our Dr. Jekyll, who can enhance people through special elixirs called mutagens, who have the option of improving themselves for mental or physical abilities, including straight-up fighting. The level 1 benefit has been replaced. Before, you could get an echo of a previous mutagen you consumed that day, which you could only use once per day. Now you get a number of temporary hit points equal to your intelligence modifier plus half of your level. These last for 1 minute, and you can only benefit from this once per minute. However, this is a nice cushion of hit points, especially if you want to get in the front lines to fight your foes. And the way it scales, it's especially helpful at those crucial early levels. Next, you can drink one of your versatile vials to suppress the drawback of one mutagen that is affecting you. Now, here, while we're talking about the Mutagenist, I will point out that one of the popular mutagens has had an important improvement, and that is the Bestial mutagen. Before, it gave you this -1 penalty to armor class, which is nasty in this system. It makes you more likely to be crit. They have removed that, while making the -2 penalty to reflex saves also extend to acrobatics and stealth checks as well, though in most situations that's less bad. They also made the mutagen scale so that you don't need to have a hand wrap of mighty blows with striking runes for it to do more damage. It now does it naturally. But yes, if you drink one of your vials, you can suppress the drawback until the start of your next turn. Now, I'm not sure how useful this is, though I'm sure there are situations, like there's that mutagen that prevents you from recalling knowledge, and you can do this outside of combat also. No reason not to do this to suppress temporarily the drawback from some mutagen you're under in a whole variety of situations. So there's probably some use cases I haven't thought of. The level 5 field discovery lets you, while you are under the effect of a mutagen, if you fail a fortitude save, you get to re-roll it. This does end the effect of the mutagen. However, you probably can whip up another one to bring the effect back. At 11th level, when you drink one of your vials to suppress the drawback from a mutagen, you can also gain resistance to physical damage equal to half of your level for the same duration, which is until the start of your next turn. Now that this is clearly about using it in combat, I'll bring up one concern here, which is I think to drink one of your field vials, you need to spend an action to quick alchemy and then another to drink it. So it's pretty action intensive. And I don't know if there should be an option or maybe even a rule change to let you drink one of your field vials as part of the quick alchemy action, at least for some of these subclasses. The 13th level feature is the same as before. It's the one that lets you benefit from 2 mutagens at once, but you accumulate the drawbacks from both. And there's some extra language about what happens if you drink a 3rd mutagen. It's the same as before. All right, the last subclass is the Toxicologist, our specialist in poisons. Now, remember that one of the big appeals of this subclass before was that you get to use your class DC for the DC of any poison you make. However, that's now a default level 5 feature of all alchemists. So what have they done to make the Toxicologist still stand out? Well, the level 1 benefit still has the feature where you can apply poison to a weapon or piece of ammo that you are wielding as a single action rather than as a 2-action activity, which is the case with all injury poisons, I believe. But in addition, your infused poisons, so those that are not from your downtime craft activity, now have acid mixed in with them so that when they would do poison damage and the foe has resistance or immunity to poison, you can count it as acid damage instead. You get to use whatever is more detrimental to the foe, which is, it's kind of situational. There's not a lot of foes that resist poison damage. It seems to me that the main appeal is this ability to apply poison as a single action. So let's look at their other level 1 feature, field vials. Your versatile vials count as both poison and acid for damage purposes, and you use the one that's worse for the enemy. But you also get to apply it as an injury poison to a weapon or piece of ammunition. Now, for practical purposes, it's one you're wielding because it becomes inert at the end of your current turn. It adds its damage to your first successful strike with it. Now, again, I have my complaints here. It looks like it takes 2 actions to set this up, to create the thing and to apply it to your weapon. And if you miss that strike, and you probably only have 1 strike unless you are quickened, then it's over. It's gone. I can see a lot of people wanting to make 2 strikes instead and then have a 3rd action to do something else. I'm not so sure about the implementation, but I see the intention. A lot of times with the Alchemist, you wanted to save your poisons for tougher, higher level enemies, but they usually had a very stubborn fortitude save that they would succeed and then your poison did nothing. However, here you get to apply some extra damage if you can get a strike through, but I think it's kind of action intensive. And also, unlike poisons you normally would apply, it expires at the end of your turn. At 5th level, you have poison resistance equal to half of your level. At 11th level, when you use your injury poison option, then they take persistent poison damage equal to the splash damage of your versatile vial, which is between 2 and 4. And I don't know of any creatures that have weakness to poison damage. However, some have weakness to acid damage, and this counts as acid. The 13th level feature was traded between the Toxicologist and a Alchemist feat. Before, the Toxicologist could apply 2 poisons to the same weapon and deliver them with a blow. That's now a feat. Now it can do what a feat formerly used to give. You can now deliver one of your alchemical poisons to a foe from an infused injury poison. And if they fail their saving throw, then it sprays to an adjacent creature of your choice, and they're exposed to the poison as well. Now, if only an ally is adjacent to the foe, this is bad. It looks like you don't have a choice. I, as a GM, would allow you to have a choice not to spray it on your own ally. Compared to the previous feat, this has been buffed. It doesn't require that your target be within 30 feet of you, and they don't have to critically fail their saving throw for it to possibly spread. And it no longer costs you a reaction. Now, as part of preparing for this, I looked at the poisons in the remaster and compared them to the previous versions in the 2019 core rulebook, and it looks like there's a systematic lowering of the damage that poisons do in the system. And I don't know what I think about that, because, okay, maybe there's some tables where it became overpowered, but at least in my experience, I've not seen poison be particularly overpowered. I've only seen a few players lean into poisons, and they often saved it for tougher foes who had very good fortitude saves and would sometimes resist those poisons and not be affected by them. But yeah, you can see here, Giant Centipede Venom went from 1d6 to 1d12 damage down to just 1d4 damage at all stages. And Spider Root had a dramatic change from 8d6 down to 3d6 at stage 1. They're not all this dramatic, but there seems to have been a systematic lowering across the board. And I'm not sure what I think about that. I'm just going to raise it to the community for now. But I will say overall, it seems that Toxicologist is a bit shortchanged in the remaster compared to the other subclasses, definitely. All right, on to the feats. And there's a lot of feats. I'm only going to cover the ones that I saw changes in and the ones that jumped out at me. If you're looking for something more comprehensive, you may want to also look at one of my older videos where I covered healing and bombs in the Alchemist class, where I go over feats and items for those parts of being an alchemist. Future Ronald chiming in, the most important feat change probably is the change to Quick Bomber. Before, it allowed you for a single action to draw an already made bomb and throw it. However, you can now quick alchemy a bomb and then throw it. So if you like to bomb, and many alchemists will like to bomb, you can, up to 6 times per battle, use your best bombs. And beyond that, you can use your fallback versatile vials as bombs. You already were able to throw bombs at will with 2 actions, but this makes it a single action. This is particularly good if you have the bomber archetype and can change the damage type of those versatile vials at will. Basically, the designers are serving the bomber fantasy. The designers want to give you a way to freely throw many bombs every combat, and that's what this feat is for. Okay, first of all, it looks like they did not reprint Calculated Splash. It seems like they're saving it for the bomber subclass to be able to add their intelligence to damage. However, there is a higher level alchemist feat which stayed intact, which does something better. And anyone can still take this. It's called Expanded Splash, where you get a bonus to your splash damage equal to your intelligence modifier. So that's better. However, it is now called a status bonus. And additionally, if you are the bomber subclass, your splash damage basically equals double your intelligence modifier. So that is a buff. Now, before I go systematically from low-level feats to high-level feats, I'm going to cover a few categories. So this first category is increasing your resources as an alchemist. The level 4 feat Efficient Alchemy increases the number of alchemical items you can prepare in the morning by 2. It goes from 4 plus your intelligence mod to 6 plus your intelligence mod. It still has the previous benefit of doubling the number of consumable items you can craft in your downtime within the same period of time. Then at level 10, you can increase this by another 2, and if you are level 16 or higher, it increases further. Then it's 10 plus your intelligence modifier. Oh, that's a lot. This next feat, Improvise Admixture, lets you replenish your versatile vials in the middle of combat with a single action. This is kind of reminiscent of feats that let you get a focus point back when you're at 0, like the Champion's Desperate Prayer feat. But in this case, it's to get your alchemist resource back. So basically, you spend an action, and it's only once per day, just like with those feats, to get some of your versatile vials back. You do a crafting check, and depending on your degree of success, that determines how many you get back. A regular success gives you 2, critical success gives you 3, regular failure gives you 1. Critical failure gives you none. So useful in a tough, long fight where what you need is not in your prepared reserves. Next is an important buff to the alchemist that I have not covered yet because it didn't make sense to cover it earlier, which is that the additive trait has been changed. There are some feats that let you do something extra with something you make with quick alchemy. However, they required you to do something lower level than your current level. So if you were level 10, you could only add something from a feat to something you make if the formula was level 8 or lower, as an example. However, there's no talk of levels anymore. Basically, you can just apply this new thing from your feat to it, and it can be to a formula that is your current level. So you get to buff the brand new toy you just got. So there's a few feats like that I'll highlight. First is Healing Bomb. Before, you had to convert an elixir of life that was at least 2 levels lower than your level, but now you don't have to worry about that anymore. It's very similar to before. You just throw that elixir of life at an ally, and it hits them even on a failure. It now has been changed to be like Baldur's Gate 3 potions that you can throw at allies, where it not only affects your target, but it splashes in an area. You have to succeed on the attack roll to have that splash. And when you fail now, that part's worse than before. They only gain a number of hit points equal to the number of dice of healing, whereas before it had a full effect. Also, if you succeed at hitting your ally, they get the benefit against poison and diseases. You don't have to critically succeed like before. The next additive feat is Combine Elixirs. This lets you combine 2 elixirs into a single one that you can deliver to an ally or have them drink. Now the formulas don't have to be 2 levels lower than your level. So it's nice. You get to give double the healing with a single elixir. However, I believe it costs 3 of your versatile vials to create this. That's what it did before. It could be read that you only use 2, but I think it's 3. So if you have an ally who's in trouble, you can, with a single elixir, give them double healing, or healing plus, let's say, the mist form elixir effect of making them concealed for a while. So it's a bit costly, though useful in a pinch, and more available than before because you get to replenish your versatile vials. Another additive feat is the excellent Sticky Bomb feat, which lets you do your splash damage from your bomb as persistent damage on the enemy. Excellent if they have a weakness to that damage type. Before, it had to be 2 levels lower than your level. Now it no longer needs that. The next one I'll highlight is Unstable Concoction. Before it was a funky set of rules where you get to quick alchemy something 2 levels higher than you. Now it's been simplified and streamlined. Basically, if it did damage or healing, it increases the size of the dice by 1 step. So 2d8 becomes 2d10, for example. But the big change is that your flat check that you take, because it's not reliable, if it fails, it does not negate your intended effect. Before, it would explode and deal damage to the user. Now it still takes effect and might possibly deal damage to the user, and the damage is not as much. So it's more reliable and simpler, which are probably all good things. Now that I'm looking at how much Elixirs of Life healed, it looks like you're taking a gamble. You're either going to do X more healing or do X less healing in the end. It's the same X, however. The next additive feat is Exploitive Bomb. This is the one that ignores a certain amount of resistance to your damage from your bomb equal to your level. Before it had to be 2 levels lower than your level, no longer. And they've clarified the language. Ignoring a certain amount of resistance applies to the initial damage, the splash damage, and the persistent damage. So that's a nice clarification, which wasn't clear, at least to me before. This was either a buff or a clarification of their original intent. Either way, it's welcome. The next set of feats are about them making the alchemists great at removing negative effects. Alchemists had some ability to do that before, but were kind of outshined in this department by some other classes. Now they are very good. So first there's this level 1 feat called Soothing Vials. It requires you to be a Chirurgeon, and in fact it's the only alchemist feat that requires a certain research field in this book. When a living creature is affected by one of your versatile vials, then they get to do a new will saving throw against a mental effect of their choice, and they get a +1 item bonus to the saving throw. So this can come from that vial you throw and hit them with to heal them. It's kind of funny. At level 4, you can take Invigorating Elixir. Like all the other alchemist feats, no subclass required. Basically, when they drink an elixir from you, they get to choose a condition from this list that you can try to counteract. The list is clumsy, enfeebled, sickened, or stupefied. Now, some of you will note sickened is here and know that you cannot voluntarily imbibe things while you're sickened. This feat actually says that they can voluntarily imbibe one of yours. And counteracting the sickened condition, by the way, was available as a level 14 feat before. So we can see that they are clearly buffing this aspect of the alchemist. And the other conditions, clumsy, enfeebled, and stupefied, you couldn't counter as an alchemist before, as far as I could tell. Note that if there is some greater cause, like a curse or a disease causing that condition, this will have no effect. This feat is a prerequisite for the next one, Improved Invigorating Elixir. It adds the conditions that it can counteract. It adds blinded, deafened, drained, paralyzed, slowed, confused, controlled, fleeing, frightened, paralyzed, and slowed. A number of these conditions were simply not available before, such as the confused and controlled condition. You can actually end mind control and mind manipulation with this feat. Now, elixirs have to be imbibed, so I don't think you have to do a check of any kind to force your mind-controlled ally to drink it. I don't see that intention in the rules, and I will not enforce a check requirement in my games. But that's kind of funny. I don't think you could counteract drained before either as an alchemist, at least through feats. And the remaining conditions required you to have significantly higher level feats to counteract some of them. Now you get them all combined together at a lower level. I also see the fleeing condition here, which is also hilarious, administering an elixir to somebody who's running for their life. By the way, in Pathfinder 1st edition, there was a way to deliver alchemical things to your allies through injections, including shooting things at them. We don't see that in Pathfinder 2nd edition, and I'm not sure why not. Anyway, maybe Starfinder 2e will bring that. We'll see in the playtest that comes out this summer also. And this feat is a prerequisite for Supreme Invigorating Elixir. This basically means that you count as 2 levels higher for the purpose of counteracting effects. So increasing your counteract rank by 1. You also get to add Petrified and Stunned to the conditions you can remove, which were not available to the alchemist before. Next, we get a couple of feats that help you benefit from mutagens, specifically the 6 mutagens that are keyed to the 6 attributes. Mutant Physique is a level 8 feat and combines 3 different feats from before, some of which were higher level, into this single level 8 feat. So that itself is a buff. Now, if you imbibe a Bestial mutagen, which we remember has been improved in the remaster, you still get to improve your intimidation checks and increase your damage from your claws and jaws by 1 step and give them the deadly D10 trait. But now increasing the damage die size no longer decreases your armor class. So that double hit of -2 AC total if you imbibed a Bestial mutagen is now gone. The Juggernaut Mutagen effect, which was before in a higher level feat, is now here, and also it scales better. It's slightly better. And the Quicksilver Mutagen effect, which improves kind of your dexterity and your speed, is the same. But then again, they're all combined in one feat. And when you get to level 13 as the Mutagenist, you get to benefit from 2 mutagens at once. So you get to benefit from 2 of these benefits if they're both under this list. At level 14, you can also take Mutant Innervation, which basically lets you benefit more from the mental mutagens. These have the same effects as before, but whereas before you had to take a level 14 feat, level 16 feat, and level 18 feat, you get them all here at level 14 in a single feat. All right, now we're going to go up through the levels and remark on feats on the way, at least the ones that have changes that jumped out at me. First is Alchemical Familiar. Now, a familiar you gets the Construct Familiar ability, and it does not count against your maximum number of familiar abilities in your daily preparations. And that's a pretty good ability. It basically gives them immunity to a lot of negative effects. However, they no longer benefit from healing, so it's a trade-off. However, you might like that. Next, the Blowgun Poisoner has a little buff. This is the one that lets you deliver poisons through a blowgun, even when it does 0 damage. Now when you critically succeed on your blowgun strike, it basically just worsens their poison saving throw by 1 degree of success. Before, it only lowered a failure to a critical failure. Now it can turn a success into a failure. Now also, if you were hidden or undetected when you shot the dart, you get a chance to stay hidden. So if you have some nasty poisons to deliver, you can have quite an effect while staying in relative safety. So next is Clotting Elixirs, a level 2 feat. This is a new feat. When you have an infused elixir that has the healing trait and someone drinks it and they're bleeding, they have persistent bleed damage, they have a fair chance, a DC 10 flat check, to remove that persistent damage. This next feat is a new feat. It's called Regurgitate Mutagen. You get to vomit out the contents of a mutagen that you're under the effect of. You target one creature within 30 feet and they take acid damage, and it scales to your level. If they fail, they become sickened because, of course, the mutagen's duration immediately ends, but then again, because of the new buff to the Alchemist, you can probably give yourself a new mutagen. And I have to say that gross feats like this were pretty common in first edition Pathfinder. There's like the one that gave you a vestigial limb or gross second head. And I wish we could see more of that kind of flavor in the Alchemist in the future. But I guess we just won't see it in a core book, at least. Next is something that existed before, Directional Bombs, a level 6 feat that before let you, instead of splashing the area immediately around a creature, splash in a 15-foot cone beyond the creature that had to be away from you. Now, it doesn't have to be away from you. It can be a cone going in any direction. Next is Fortified Elixirs. Basically, you strengthen you and your allies' resistance to disease or poison. If they're under the effect of an antidote or an anti-plague that you made and they fail their fortitude save, they get to choose to re-roll that save. It ends the effect of the antidote or anti-plague, but they have a chance of preventing the affliction entirely, which is probably worth it. And again, you can use your versatile vials to give them a new antidote or anti-plague. The re-roll does not benefit from the item bonus from that item, however. Next is Alter Admixture, a level 8 feat, which is new. Basically, it's like the wizard's substitution thesis. You get to change one of your prepared alchemical items to another item within your formula book. It just has to be of a similar type. So a bomb can only be another kind of bomb. A tool can be only another kind of tool. And the process takes 10 minutes. Now, honestly, I'm not sure how strong this is, given that you automatically, without having to focus on it, get at least 2 of your versatile vials back just existing in exploration mode. And you can use versatile vials to make anything in your formula book. And the replacement item under this feat has to be the same or lower item level than the one you replace, which is not a limitation that exists for your versatile vials feature. All right, level 14, Double Poison. This used to be a feature of the Toxicologist, but now it's been turned into a feat and it's been improved. You get to apply 2 infused injury poisons to the same weapon, but not a piece of ammo. But now they only have to be 2 levels lower than your level, which before was 6 levels lower. And it gives rules for how to adjudicate that. Next is the level 18 feat Miracle Worker. This makes your Elixir of Life revive the dead. Before, you needed to have a true Elixir of Life, which was a level 19 item, which wasn't available to you at level 18 when you could take this. Now it only requires a major Elixir of Life, a level 15 item, which, moreover, is much cheaper, like 80% cheaper. But who cares about the cost? Because remember, you can make another major Elixir of Life with versatile vials. And looking at this made me realize how strong this feat is, and now even stronger because you're using a limitless resource basically. So long as you 10 minutes pass between every use of it, you don't have to worry about a ally dying. Or at least, okay, there are negative consequences to being knocked out, but you have a cushion against the Grim Reaper. All right, now we have a couple of level 20 feats that I want to cover. There's Alchemical Revivification, which is pretty crazy. If you die, you return to life at the start of your next turn, and you benefit from an Elixir of Rejuvenation, which brings you to full health and removes all negative effects that are 20th level or lower. Then a true Elixir of Life, and then one of the physical mutagens. And after this happens, only 1 to 4 hours need to pass before you can benefit from this again. Pretty amazing. And the last one, if you were waiting for this while I was going over the additive feats and were disappointed, I didn't forget you, the Mega Bomb. Before, it had the additive 3 trait, so you could only apply it to bombs that are level 17 or lower. Now that number is gone, you can apply it to higher level bombs. Otherwise, it does the same stuff, but now you can use it with the highest level bombs in the game. So those were the feats, and now I'm going to go over a couple of quick things. First, there is a section of alchemical items in the book. It's about 16 pages. There's a lot of overlap with the GM core book. It's about twice as big, and we have our 6 basic mutagens, which were not in the GM core, and the Drakeheart mutagen, the AC enhancing one. But I just want to call out the Elixir of Gender Transformation. Now, we've always had the Serum of Sex Shift since the 2019 core rulebook, which allows you to change your gender. But we have this alchemical item, which kind of simulates the whole real-life process that people go through to transition their gender. You can pause your video and see how it works, and it takes time and multiple applications. But yeah, I thought it was pretty cool of them to include a non-magical way to do it that also reflects the actual experience of many players of the game. So I appreciated that. Lastly, I'm going to briefly cover the Alchemist archetype that is in this book. Like the base Alchemist, it got some fundamental changes. The Alchemist dedication before allowed you to prepare some batches of alchemical items in the morning and reserved quick alchemy for a level 4 feat. Now those are reversed. Now you get to do quick alchemy with the dedication. And here, unlike the base Alchemist, it gives you 4 versatile vials and you cannot replenish them. You still get 8 alchemical formulas, however, 4 of them no longer have to be first leveled. It looks like they can be at your current level or lower. You also get no research field from the Alchemist. It's not possible. So your versatile vials are limited to the acid bomb or quickly making a consumable in your formula book. Now it's the level 4 feat where we get the ability to prepare some infused items for the day. Now, I was a bit confused as to how many you get to prepare during your daily preparations. It clearly says 4 within the feat itself, but it says 4 alchemical consumables. So that would not include some alchemical tools that are not consumable. Granted, none of them are printed in this book, but they've been in previous books. But I was confused about how many because it says right here that you gain the advanced alchemy benefits and you get to create a certain number of alchemical consumables as described on page 58. And that is from the Alchemist class where it says you get to prepare 4 plus your intelligence modifier. So you would prepare more than 4. However, I think specific beats general in this case, and there's a reason why this sentence is here. So I think you're limited to 4, and they have to be consumables. Okay, so that was another rules lawyer ruling as we go through this effort at a summary. The next feat I'll talk about is Voluminous Vials. This increases the number of versatile vials you get per day by 1 from 4 to 5. And to increase it further, you actually have to take this feat another time. This seems like not worth a feat, an archetype feat, to me. I wish it were more generous. We also have the usual feats that allow you to take feats from the underlying class that we see for every other class-based archetype. And I won't show those because you already know what those are going to say. Now, the way the Alchemist archetype currently works is you get a number of batches of infused reagents equal to your level that would scale up from level 1 to 20. You would get a good deal of reagents. And now you're limited to a handful, like about 4, of both what you can prepare and your versatile vials. This seems like a strict nerf. However, there's a hidden bonus here, which is you no longer have to deal with your advanced alchemy level, which was set to 1 when you took the Alchemist dedication. And that was the highest level you could prepare alchemical items up to. You could only make first level alchemical items before, and to advance that, you have to take 2 feats that would eventually make your advanced alchemy level only several levels behind your current level, 5 levels behind at high levels. Now that is completely eliminated. You get to make alchemical items of your current level with the archetype, which probably is more desirable by players to have fewer things to do, but when you do them, they are at a comparable power level-wise to what you can do with your base class. And additionally, you can take this level 12 feat so that you get to use your Alchemist class DC for alchemical items you make, like your poisons. And it also increases your Alchemist class DC to Expert. That was not available before. So those lower level poisons that had specific effects you wanted to impose don't automatically become obsolete now. So now for some final thoughts about the Alchemist. Well, it's become a at-will class, I'll call it, where you get to use your core features and get them back throughout the adventuring day. You don't have to worry about losing your daily reagents. This is a huge quality of life change and makes decision-making less complex as an alchemist. And also, we don't have this situation in the previous Alchemist where you had very few reagents at low levels, but an excess of them at high levels. Now it's much flatter. You get a certain amount, and you only get to increase that somewhat with your intelligence boosts and some feats. You also don't have to deal with the bookkeeping of figuring out which 20 or 30 items you're going to prepare in the morning this time. Your attacks going up to Master at level 15 is a big deal for those who want to get more directly involved with their bombs and their weapon attacks. This is a strict upgrade if you want to do that. They have lowered the player skill floor for playing an Alchemist. Now you get to choose to play it simply. Just be a bomber and take the quick bomber feat and throw bombs with a single action and do it all day. Or you have the option of diving into the complexity of the class, if you so choose, to get that feeling of tinkering and being always prepared for every eventuality and having the right tool for the job. You get to do that as well if you wish. It's also less fiddly managing your formula book and figuring out what you can use in your formula book. All of the poisons use your current class DC, so you don't have to juggle the trade-offs between having a less desirable effect in this moment and having a lower poison DC. And you also get to use all of your cool additive feats with your highest level formulas now. And the last effect is that you can be a first edition Pathfinder style bomber that many people who played the Alchemist class then wanted to do when they chose the class. And you can do this starting at level 1. You're not going to run out of bombs. And frankly, this was probably maybe the biggest hurdle for a lot of new players who saw the goblin throwing bombs in the artwork for the Pathfinder Alchemist, who wanted to do that but were limited by how few reagents they had. You can learn to stop worrying and start to love the bomb. So overall, a lot of buffs to the class and making it more approachable. I am excited to see more alchemists in games, hopefully after this Player Core 2 book comes out. A couple of last comments. If you want to use the automatic bonus progression variant in your game, which basically gives your players the math bonuses for free from magic items as they level up, then you will want to make sure it does not gimp alchemists, because you can read the rules as written to eliminate item bonuses from the game, which is bad for a lot of the valuable alchemical items that alchemists can make. And to correct this, I made a video on automatic bonus progression and the variant of the variant rule called automatic rune progression, which you should all check out. And lastly, I made a couple of videos on the Alchemist a couple of years ago. Certain things that I say are going to be out of date. However, if you're looking for an in-depth overview of your options for bombs and healing and guidance on feats, a lot of which is still useful even under the remaster, check out these videos titled Making Alchemy Not Suck. I'll include links to them in the video description. So now my quick outro: support my Patreon to get ad-free early access to most of my videos and exclusive content, and if you haven't yet, join my Discord where we talk Pathfinder 2e and other gaming, and if you want to play Pathfinder 2e, we have a drop-in, drop-out organized play system called Endless Tale Tavern. So that's it. I have been Ronald the Rules Lawyer. I hope you enjoyed the video, like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.